here. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to present an excellent discovery that my team and I made in the last 6 months. So my the title here is Payment for Ecosystem Services. 1 + 1 is, they are mathematicians. You guys know 1 + 1 is equal to, but here I'm presenting to you 1 + 1 could be equal to, bigger than 2, or less than 2. And I'll explain why this is possible. Well, first, I want to explain ecosystem services. Basically, that's all the good things we receive from the nature. I forgot to probably turn on. Okay, I'm good? All right. So, in theory, all the components of the nature, including the things we enjoy, for example, clean water, soil, forest biodiversity, and so on and so forth, wildlife and habitat. All these are ecosystem services. But right now, as human population increases, worldwide, there's lots of pressure. So what we do as humans or as policymakers, we do payments for ecosystem services. What we do here is we give money to some users of natural resources such that they stop doing something or they continue doing something that are environmentally good. So of course, if I did some literature review, seems there is a sustainability problem. For example, we pay you the money. Once the payment is gone, then you get back to whatever you used to. So basically, the payment is not permanent. That's a worldwide problem, including a problem in the US. So here, I just want to give you some examples of the PES. For example, in US, there is Conservation Reserve Program, CRP. So it has been started implemented for so many years. Basically, it's USDA, FSA, Farm Service Agency administers the CRP for the whole United States. What they do is the government pays farmers a certain amount of money. In return, the farmers either stop doing something or to plant some species that are environmentally good. That's what we do. Of course, there are some other PES in the world. UN has REDD, Canada has their PCP, and European Union has their CP programs, and so on and so forth. So here, I want to introduce one PES program that is implemented in China. Right now, it has the 3rd PES programs. It started approximately 2000, then it ended about 2008, and the second phase started about 2008, 2009, up to, I would say, 2014. Right now, it's the 3rd phase. So basically what they do is they pay individual households some money, grain, cash, or savings, and also the government provides some technical support. As return, the farmers stop planting, stop farming and plant some trees on their stepped farmland. This is what they have done. At the same time, there's another natural forest conservation program, which is called NFCP. So what this program does is also the government pays forest enterprises to patrol, to protect the natural forest. Okay, for example, they have an logging ban. No one can collect any firewood, timber, and so on from such forest land. Of course, the individuals or the households may get some money back. So here, this is the map of China. You see, all the green areas are GTGP, and both GTGP and NFCP program, provinces. The yellow places are the GTGP only. So you can say pretty much 90% of the territory of China has experienced this GTGP program. However, the curse of permanence, this is what I call for PES programs. Usually, research has demonstrated that if this GTGP and NFCP do not continue, it's likely that lots of the land that has returned to forest will forest and grassland will be converted back to, for example, farmland or whatever. So in this regard, my team and I choose Fangjinshan National Nature Reserve in the Guizhou province. So here, this is the only habitat for the Guizhou golden monkey species. It has about 800 animals. It's an endangered species by IUCN, and also these ecosystems are homes for many other plant, bird, and animal species. So but unlike many other nature reserves in the US, this reserve actually is also home to about 13,000 local farmers. They live within the reserve. Okay. At the same time, over 570,000 tourists come to the reserve to enjoy the natural beauty and the cultural heritage in the reserve. For example, this is the top of the nature reserve. There are many Buddhist temples, Taoist temples over there, and the natural beauty. I don't have probably time to show that. So right now, this is an SLF project that I'm leading. We are coming to the end of our project. We have found something that I do want to show. This is the golden monkey. Right now, we have deployed 68 cameras to trap their activities. Right now, we just analyze the results. So this is a project in collaboration with Rebecca Lewison from biology and also Doug Stowe from Department of Geography. So this is my approach. So basically, this is the real things on the ground, where there are people, households, forests, ecosystems, and so on and so forth. And on my computers, we try to build a digital world such that humans are the center. But at the same time, we consider the biophysical environment, the socio-political environment. We want to know how people interact with the biophysical environment and also the socio-political environment. So of course, we use lots of geospatial analytics. For example, we also use satellite imagery to monitor, to detect changes on the ground. At the same time, we use, for example, GIS, modeling, spatial statistics, and so on, to help us understand what are really happening on the ground. So by accident, the reason I say by accident, because this discovery was what we intended to find. Oops. First, PES programs are weakening or canceling out each other. This is something I never realized. I was thinking, okay, they are helping each other. I will show you some numbers. The first, the higher the NFCP, remember this is the government payment to help local people to patrol the forest land, to ban logging on their forest land. But the lower GTGP enrollment. So, okay. The next one is the more NFCP land that they have to patrol, then the lower GTGP enrollment. This is still they are contradictory to each other. Also, the more frequent NFCP patrols, then the lower GTGP enrollment. My reasoning is that probably their time is limited. If they spend time on this, they probably have to reduce time on that, even if they get money from both. And the last one is consistent with what I found. The closer GTGP parcels, the more likely to support NFCP, which at the same time, you can say if they don't have to spend too much time for travel to go to the GTGP parcels to plant trees, to take care of the trees they planted, then more likely they are going to support the NFCP program. Well, in general, in US, there are many, many policy programs, especially for PES conservation programs. So here, this is a website, even under USDA. I just visited the website, at least 7 programs. But usually we do in a piecemeal style. We seldom, if not level, consider the overlap over space and the overlap over time. How the programs should be coordinated with one another. Or at the same time, I think people, especially scientists and policymakers, we should consider this equation or inequality 1 + 1 greater than 2 through communication, through this connecting segments in an integrated style. For example, here I want to highlight my emphasis of complex human environment systems. So basically, we consider this system, the ecosystem or human environment system, as a complex system which has complexity features such as nonlinearity, heterogeneity, feedback, threshold, and so on and so forth. With all these things together, we should think about this equation or inequality. For example, through systems integration, we can make things happen such that even if the two programs, if we put them together, they are strengthening each other rather than weakening or canceling each other. Thank you very much.
Questions for our speaker?
All right. Yes.
So if you could totally redesign the system, the reward and punishment system, and thinking about some other aspect of human incentive based upon your model of the whole, right? So instead of trying to get the maximum from adding together these two common things, what else would you do? How would you do it differently?
Well, I think there are things right now for this program, for example. We can probably, first is to overlap over time. We should probably, for these two programs, they are both environmentally beneficial, but probably not at the same time, such that they cancel each other. The second thing I would like to think about is, well, maybe when we do one thing in one place, probably we should do the other thing in another place without putting them together such that they compete for people's attention, compete for people's time, and so on and so forth. Another thing I'm thinking about, well, because the policy designers, they only focus on their own segment or their own section of the work. So probably it's better for them to talk to scientists or policymakers of the other government agency or section. Say, well, I'm going to do that. What are you going to do? What kind of potential positive or negative influence may arise from if we do it together? Thank you for the very good question. Right. Yes.
So some of these things, at least in this country, involve some of the benefits or the things people are being asked to do for conservation purposes or for like you described, involve a change of human behavior. So
Yes.
people are actually, instead of planting crops, they're planting trees.
Yes.
There are other situations where people are being paid not to do things.
True.
So it doesn't involve more activity, it involves less activity. And I'm wondering if those kinds of getting paid to do less are more sustainable in some ways than those where they're actually having to learn about forestry and about growing trees and that sort of thing, or changing their behavior more dramatically. Have you looked at those different kinds of behavioral changes and how people are willing to adopt them?
That's a great question. Actually, this GTGP program did trigger some behavior changes because when local people get some money, they have more free time. Some of them, migrate to cities, for example, for some, higher paid jobs. But some local people in some places, they got more free time. They decided to spend their time on the natural environment, on the ecosystems. They collect firewood, some, Chinese medicine herbs or mushrooms. In that situation, this kind of GTGP or PS program may have a negative consequence towards the ecosystem. So in this regard, we really have to consider in different contexts how these parties may change the behavior of those payment recipients. So in my research, what we found is there's a mixture of behavior change for local people. For some of the rich people, for example, actually they don't care too much for the payments because right now China has an escalating economy. They don't care too much about that's the amount of money. But for the poor people, it's more, that money makes more sense, makes a big difference to their subsistence lifestyle. In that regard, for them, they are more likely to quit their previous environmentally detrimental pattern, behavior, and to do something more friendly to the environment. But for the rich people, that payment doesn't matter. So in that regard, we really have to think for the government agency, thinking about the income and also the previous behavior patterns of the people involved in the PS programs.
I mean, but it seems to me that you're linking everything about trying to influence human behavior to pay and incentives.
Yes.
What about other kinds of incentives? Because it's got to be more than just pay. I could see it from the poorer people's perspective, where that pay makes a difference, but there's got to be some other element of incentive beyond just pay that I would hope you'd be thinking about, and how to positively influence the ecosystem.
I agree, yeah. Money is important, but money is not everything. So in this regard, probably, as I just mentioned, for the two programs, there is some limited technical support. There is some other type of incentives, such as, for example, if you return some of your farmland, they not get not only technical support, they get some other credit. But right now, I think the primary incentive is money. So what we are trying to research is, in addition to this monetary incentive, what else can we provide to the local people? So in my research, we found, for example, for the people with migration history, then they are more likely to take the money, and also they want to spend money, for example, for their children. They want to migrate with the parents to big cities rather than stay in the local ecosystem. So at least this would reduce the negative impact of local ecosystems. So here, the bigger question is, maybe that we are transport some local negative consequence to some remote ecosystem. That's possible. But in terms of incentive, I agree. Money is important, but not everything. We should think more about the context, also the complex, human nature interactions. It's a good question.
The last I heard, and when I was last in China, which was a while ago, the areas where marginal agriculture was being converted to forests, the carbon sequestration, the carbon credits were not being considered and not being taken by the Chinese. Has that changed? And if it hasn't changed, why is that? There are huge areas planted and huge carbon potential credits or sequestration, big part of the carbon budget that hasn't been accounted for as far as I know.
Well, that's a great question. Great question, too. As I introduced, we have a remote sensing scientist, Doug Stowe, in our project. He and his student found that overall, over this 10 years of implementation of GTGP or PS program, we have some stable or slight increase in terms of the forest cover, the CFC, canopy forest cover. In that regard, the carbon sequestration, I believe, the carbon, has been stable or slightly increased. But as far as I know, in the local, county, or even provincial government, there's not too much concern about a carbon credit. We preserve, the ecosystem, then we get some money from outside people who enjoy these ecosystem services. So right now, I think, in China, this kind of market mechanism is not that good. So, but I think, in addition to what that gentleman just recommended, in addition to directly payment to the local farmers, we should think about some indirect, payment systems, such as carbon sequestration consideration, credits, or purchase of these kind of licenses. You pay more than you can do something you want to make money.
I mean, given the criticism that China is under for fossil fuel emissions, it really seems that it's something that they would want to account for and take credit for, right? No. Okay.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
That was not a good question. We actually have to move along, but thank you
Okay,
so much.
no problem.
I just want to make a